Hey everyone, quick video here explaining the document-based question essay. The rubric and test format is the same for APUSH, AP World, and AP Euro. So this info is relevant for all of them. All right, let's get into it. First, I want to briefly discuss how this will look on the AP test, and then we'll get into the rubric points. The document-based question has a suggested planning and writing time of 1 hour, which includes the analysis of the prompt and the 7 documents. The College Board recommends students spend 15 minutes on the documents. I think that time will vary depending on the skills of the person taking the test and whatever strategy they are using. When writing the essay, the students need to develop an argument that addresses the prompt. The DBQ will focus on topics from 1754 to 1980, so at least one part of the prompt will be from periods 3 through 8. There was this one year, though, I remember, that the prompt spilled well over into period 9. Yeah, there were some unhappy teachers and students that year. The DBQ will count 25% towards your overall exam score. I do want to mention quickly the LEQ because it is part of the chunk of time a test taker has with both essays. The College Board suggests 40 minutes to plan and write the LEQ. With the LEQ, students have 3 different choices of prompts from different eras, and it counts 15% towards the overall exam score. I think most students end up spending a little more time on the DBQ, which runs into their LEQ time, which is okay. LEQs require much less time because you do not have the documents to contend with, and you have some choice in the matter as you can pick the topic and time period you know well. Okay, now let's get into the rubric. First is the thesis or claim, and you will notice with the College Board rubric, you either have a thesis or you do not. There is no mastery, competent, developing, or beginning scale. It's either an acceptable thesis or it is not. In order for the thesis to be acceptable, it needs to respond to the prompt with a historically defensible claim that establishes a line of reasoning. So make sure you have a position with main points, and also make sure it is not too vague. Do not, and I repeat, do not write. There were many social, political, and economic causes. It needs to be more specific than that. Use the documents for help. What are the main ideas from the documents? How could those help you craft the thesis? Finally, with a thesis, do not merely restate the prompt. That will not earn the point. The thesis needs to be in either the introduction or conclusion. If you have time to write a conclusion, do so. There have been many times as an AP reader, I have awarded the thesis point for the conclusion because it had a better thesis than what was in the intro. Next is the contextualization, and I put this on the same slide as the thesis because most students do the contextualization in the intro paragraph with the thesis. So the intro starts with the contextualization and then adds the thesis onto the end. Technically, contextualization does not have to be in the intro, but the vast majority of students attempt it here. So what is contextualization? It is describing the broader historical context relevant to the prompt. So let's say the prompt is asking about how much American society changed due to the revolution. To put that into context, a student could talk about the cause of the revolution or developments during and after the revolution, like the division between loyalists and patriots, the Articles of Confederation, the Constitutional Convention. It is good to start out with broad historical brush, and then over the course of a couple of sentences, narrow it down to a specific topic of the prompt. So it needs to be several sentences. A lot of students attempt contextualization, but many fall short because their attempt was too vague or just not enough. As the College Board says here, to earn this point, the response must relate to the topic of the prompt, to broader historical events, developments, or processes that occur before, during, or continue after the time frame of the question. This point is not awarded for merely a phrase or reference. Okay, next is the evidence. You can get up to 2 points using the documents. For the first point, you need to use the content of at least 3 documents to address the prompt. So everyone should get this point. A student only needs to use and discuss 3 documents. They do not even need to relate it back to the thesis. However, make sure you are not heavily quoting from the documents and really try to stay away from quoting the documents at all. It is much better to use the main idea of the documents. The second document usage point is more difficult. Students need to use 6 out of the 7 documents accurately and need to use them all in a way that supports your argument. I always recommend to use all 7 documents because there always seems to be a few documents that are kind of difficult. So if you use 7 documents, you give yourself some room for error. And again, do not quote the documents. Use their main ideas. Next is the outside evidence, which is pretty straightforward. Use at least one additional piece of specific historical evidence beyond that found in the documents relevant to the argument about the prompt. To earn this point, the response must describe the evidence and must use more than a phrase or reference. This additional piece of evidence must be different from the evidence used to earn the point for contextualization. The one area students get into a little bit of trouble with this point is when the outside evidence is not covered thoroughly enough, or it seems related to a document. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between outside evidence and when a student is giving context for a document. which would go towards the sourcing point. I recommend for students to pull the outside evidence out by itself into its own mini paragraph. Speaking of sourcing, that is our next point. For at least 3 documents, explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, and/or audience is relevant to an argument. This is what many AP teachers refer to as the HIP or HAP point. I think this is one of the more difficult points because of that last phrase, which is relevant to an argument. Many times students will write in a somewhat vague reference to an author's point of view, purpose, or audience, and it falls short of meeting the relevant to an argument requirement. Lastly, we have what to many teachers we call the unicorn point, complex understanding, which is to demonstrate a complex understanding of the historical development that is the focus of the prompt, using evidence to corroborate, qualify, or modify an argument that addresses the question. There are several ways to pick up this point, including showing nuance in your writing and argument. Next would depend on the type of prompt, but students could show both similarities and differences, continuities and changes, multiple causes, or causes and effects. A student could make connections within the time period and across time periods. A student could also discuss different historical or contemporary perspectives. Finally, a student could qualify or modify their argument when they are discussing the evidence. So a student only needs to do one of these. And I think this point can be attainable without too much difficulty, but not many receive it. My advice would be to focus on writing a well-rounded essay in which you are discussing the topic of the prompt with sophistication and nuance. If you can do that, you're probably doing more than one of the possible ways to get this point. Okay, to wrap up, we went through all the specific things you need to do in APUSH, AP World, or an AP Euro essay. I hope this helps you out, and consider subbing to the channel for more of these help videos.